Assalamu alaikum and welcome viewers. Today I'm really excited to introduce to you a wonderful person who has done so much in a short span of time, and he's so young but he knows so much about Islamic digital economy and of course Islamic finance industry. He has successfully combined his knowledge of digital economy as well as the Islamic finance industry to provide the solutions to the customers in Malaysia and beyond. I'm sure that you will also be able to learn a lot from the conversation which we're going to have today. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you to you, Brother Hafiz, for inviting me. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. And brother, first of all, I wanted to ask you one very simple question, sir. Could you please let us know a bit about yourself and how you got started with your journey as an Islamic digital economy professional?
Thank you. So first of all, I would like to thank again, right, Brother Hafiz, for inviting me. Okay. So how I started, right? So how I started as the IT professional. Majority of us actually started as a programmer. So of course, after I graduated, my bachelor is in software engineering, right? So after I graduated, of course, I become a programmer. I work with this company that actually provide the solution for Islamic finance. They are developing the core banking system for bank in Malaysia. So of course, as a programmer for banking system, right? So I got to learn something about the financial engine itself, because we know that financial instrument banking is actually rely on the system actually, all the calculation of the profit, accrual, and whatnot, right? So it's actually inside the system. So I got to learn it from ground level, right? So as the career progressed, right? Of course, I became the system analyst, project manager, and then eventually now, I look into the business development for the Islamic product. And of course, I mean, along the line, right, I did further my study postgraduate in Islamic finance. So now in my current company, Silverlake, I've been 10 years actually in current company. So I'm leading the Islamic digital economy in my company, where I have to look into of course, the opportunity, what we have, the market trend, and of course, the valid business case for Silverlake to venture into. Right? So I think that is the overview of what how I started my journey until I became the professional in whatever that I'm doing now, actually. Yeah.
That's great, wonderful. What's the name of the company you're working for these days?
Silverlake. Silverlake.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could you please give us the URL of your company?
So, yeah, sure. I will. Yeah, I will. Yeah.
Okay, sure. Thank you so much, sir. And yeah, that's really amazing to know about your background. And sir, what type of services are you providing to your customers, and who your customers are, target customers are?
Okay, right. So we Silverlake, right? So Silverlake is actually majority of the time we are more focused on the banking system. I mean, incumbent banking system, right? System that provide product that and services for the bank. Right? Majority of our client is actually financial institution. Majority. So we have bank, we have takafu, we have insurance and whatnot. So of course, our company Silverlake, we have a full-fledged system, starting from the origination system up until to the level whereby we have the general ledger, the data warehouse, the business intelligence, and of course, our main business is actually core banking. Core banking, as in if we talk in, I mean, if we talk in the banking jargon, right? Core banking is actually majority of it is actually asset and liability, the financing and the deposit itself. So of course, there's something surrounding it, like the channel, internet banking, and so on and so forth. That also is actually within our, our capabilities. By the way, Silverlake, right? Silverlake actually enable 70% of Islamic finance transaction. Actually, majority of the bank in Malaysia is using our system. So yeah, and then of course in Malaysia it's actually majority 70 to 80% is actually using our system, and then some of the biggest bank in Indonesia is also using our system actually. And then of course in Japan we have the credit card team, but that one is actually not Islamic. Right? So Silverlake in Southeast Asia is actually quite a big Islamic finance solution provider, where we also have won 6 years in a row actually best Islamic solution provider. Right? So however, when we along the way, right, we have started to see some demand in the market for the real digital actually, fintech and digital economy, right? And then that spark the needs actually, right? For us internally, you said, oh, okay, we need to look into more holistic perspective. We can't really only focus on banking only, right? So that is when we started to actually look into the digital economy. Yeah? So our concept of Islamic digital economy is that we would like to touch on because in Silverlake we have a lot of subsidiaries, a lot of company that doing a lot of things. So our concept of Islamic digital economy, we would like to touch on the community, economy, and spirituality. Right? So that's why, so we felt that these three components is actually very critical for us to actually succeed in the Islamic digital economy. Internally, we have built a few prototypes, and some of it has even gone into production, right? Whereby some of it we develop a community apps, right? And then we try to actually apply the economic, like e-commerce, right, inside that app. And then we try to actually put out the spirituality concept into that app as well. We have built few prototype and MVPs actually for us to actually venture into this Islamic digital economy. Right. We also have launched some of the pilot project with some organization, some universities, and then we found out that the outreach or coverage of Islamic digital economy is actually quite big. And then for us to actually cover everything, that one will take quite long time, right? So we try to actually cover it strategically, right? Our initiative as of now includes things such as the halal food, right? Halal food, other than the financial and everything, halal food, which we look into the traceability of the halal, and then halal travel related, which is we try to actually explore with, of course, the Hajj fund, right? So we try to explore whether we can actually do the Hajj system, the Umrah system, and the Muslim travel friendly application, right? And then we also look into the thing that doesn't really, I mean, if you look into the traditional thinking of Islamic, we can't really think until that stage, whereby we try to implement the gamification for the Islamic lifestyle. We try to look into the implementation of gamification inside the, say, for example, Islamic social finance, in wakaf and sadaqah, say, for example. So how we can actually implement the gamification element when they actually contribute to the wakaf, contribute to the zakat, contribute to the sadaqah. And so how we can actually generate a point, say, for example, and how they can actually convert the point and probably recontribute back, say, for example. And then we also look into the gamification element implementation in the ibadah as well, right? So that is actually, I mean, in terms of customer, so our traditional customer is actually incumbent. However, when we start our Islamic digital economy, our customers start to, we start to get engaged with the non-bank, non-pure bank actually, like Wakaf Center, some of the non-profit organization, some of the universities, and etc.
Why should I go to you for a potential service provider instead of going to your competitors?
Okay, all right, okay, understand. All right. So why should you go to us actually? So I would say I would correlate it into a few perspective. Number one, I would like to look into the Malaysia perspective first, right? Okay. Malaysian is actually the leaders actually in Islamic finance, right? The leader in Islamic finance. So when people want to see, I mean, to want to look into the solution, they will look into the leaders first, right? So they will look into the leaders. So who is the leaders in Islamic finance Malaysia? So who is the major player of the solution in Malaysia, right? So of course, when they look into it, they will find us. So, I mean, support by us actually winning 6 years in a row best Islamic finance solution provider, I think, yeah. So we have the capacity, we have the experience actually implementing Islamic solution. May be what I mean. Every size actually, because we do have a big client in Indonesia actually. They have more than 10,000 branches actually. Yeah. Yeah. So in Indonesia, I mean, we talk about massive actually because they have, I mean, because their population is actually 300 million, right? So one of our client, they have more than 100 million of, client actually. Yeah. This newspaper, magazine, and conferences, right? So for me, these are all different audience segment for me, right? So when I go into this, all these three, right? So it is a different audience segment. So how I approach it, right? I approach it according to the segment of the audience. Say, for example, for the newspaper, and I did get invited by the local influencer in Facebook to do Facebook Live, right? So for me, the newspaper and Facebook Live, this is actually the mass audience. And then for the magazine report, like such as Global Islamic Finance Report, this is more toward the professional, right? So and then so that's why I when we actually write it, right? So we try to actually cater for the professional. And then for the conferences, of course, I attend a lot of conferences. And the one that I presented recently is actually skewed toward the academic itself. Okay. So having said that, right, of course, I covered the topic according to the nature, according to the user segment. So I would just like to summarize each of the segment, how I cover it, right? Uh, for the mass audience, right, usually I will cover the topic that really close to them, right? So during this pandemic, 2 years pandemic, right, there's a lot of thing going on actually in, I think in the world and specifically in Malaysia, right? So there's a lot of thing going on actually with the vaccine, with the COVID cases, and of course, the biggest thing is actually something related to the economy itself. How we actually revitalize the economy, how we make our all our people sustain actually, Malaysian people sustain. So our government after the MCOs, right? So the quarantine started, right? In March 2020, our government has introduced the moratorium, right? So of course, at that time, I've been invited by the influencers, some of the newspaper to talk about the moratorium because people out there, of course, they don't know about the moratorium. What is the moratorium? How is the impact and whatnot? So at that time, the government still contemplating whether to actually waive the profit accrued by the financial institution. To waive the accrued profit. And then at the time when they invite me, so I actually describe the impact if they actually take the moratorium, if the government decide not to actually waive the profit. But eventually, all the nation actually combined, and then the government actually has instructed the bank to actually waive the profit, accrued profit for the car financing actually. So that one is actually quite good for Malaysia, right, at that time, and then to actually sustain the economic at that time. And then after that, right, at that time, when people start to get moratorium, they have and then they started to accumulate money because they don't have to pay their financing loan and whatnot. So they start to accumulate money, and then this is when the scammers start to play their role actually, because they say, oh, okay, people got money, so now I can actually quote unquote take their money, right? So I've been invited again to talk about scammers actually, and then of course there's some newspaper talk about scammers. Being me as a digital professional, I gave some guideline how to actually avoid these people, because I mean our government tried to actually revitalize the economy, make it sustain and everything by providing the moratorium, but these scammers see this as an opportunity actually. So I did provide I did provide this kind of guide and whatnot, right? So of course after that I talked about the economic revitalization, and of course the recent one last month I did publish about the my opinion on the further withdrawal of our provident fund. For your information, people in Malaysia, the non-government worker, right, private sector, we have the provident fund, the retirement fund. Our retirement fund, we have to contribute 11%, 9 to 11% of our salary to this fund. Actually, of course, employer have to actually contribute 12% from our salary actually to this fund. So of course, during the pandemic, government can't really actually give the money directly to the people. So what they do, they have suggested that, okay, you can actually early withdraw your retirement fund. Actually, this retirement fund, they divide it into two accounts, like account one and account two. Account two, you can actually withdraw to buy a house and whatnot. Account one, you can't really touch it until your age 50, right? And then 50, you can withdraw half. 55, you can actually withdraw full. Okay. So, but I mean, eventually, government succumbed to the request, and then they actually government allow for them to actually withdraw that. And then after some times, the economy is not recovering. So they start to actually request again. Actually, they want to withdraw again that money. So the reporter asked me whether I have opinion on the second withdrawal or not. Based on this, right? Based on whatever the netizen, because I've been invited to actually talk with the influencer, and then I can see the comment from netizen, right? It is saddened me actually. I can see that their financial literacy and their information of economic is actually it's not that high actually. So I don't think this one is actually only Malaysia level, but I think probably this is maybe it's actually a global issue, or maybe it's actually an issue whereby any people that under pressure, say for example, they want to actually they want to get out from their trouble, they try to actually blame people actually, right? So my opinion over there, right, I would say to protect their future economy and everything, right, I don't think they can withdraw more actually. But I did suggest probably our government can actually look into a different instrument to actually accommodate this, right? So that one is actually on the newspaper, right? So and then of course on the magazine is actually on the so magazine is actually just like I say just now, right? So this one is actually professional. So we as industry experts, civilly as industry expert for Southeast Asia, we have described how we can actually use technology to actually catapult the economy. At that time, I actually did our paper is actually about the e-wallet, how we can actually use e-wallet to catapult the economy, right? Of course, for the conferences, right? Conferences for the recent conferences, it's actually about most of it is actually about the academic. The academic, I actually present from academic angle where I explore the new things such as the halal traceability via blockchain, right? Of course, this one is actually related to my work. We did our research. I have my colleague that can actually do research. He's doing PhD. We do all the research. And then, we recognize the gap And that gap actually I use and I apply in our business development, and that is when we can actually select our how we can actually collab with whoever that we want to actually collab in this digital halal player actually, right? So I think yeah, that one is actually quite long. So yeah, I'll stop
And Brother
there.
Fahmi, you've been working in this industry for a fairly long period of time. What are your impressions of the Islamic banking industry and the way it's progressing in Malaysia and in other parts of the world?
All right. Okay. Thank you. For me, in my opinion, right, as the IT professional as well as fintech professional, right, for me, Islamic finance has turned into astonishing success story for me. At the end of last year in Malaysia, of course, Malaysia, our sukuk market is more than $500 billion actually, right? So of course, end of last year, uh, our market share is around 2.3 trillion, around 2 trillion Malaysia ringgit, right? It's actually gaining from 1 trillion in 2010 Malaysia ringgit. And then from the global perspective, we have grown from $1 trillion to more than $2 trillion actually, 2.5, 2.2 to $2.5 trillion now. For me, Malaysia, I would say, I can say that Malaysia really fortunate that we started quite early, right? I think, of course, early, everyone wants to claim who is actually the one that start earlier. Actually, of course, I mean, we for us official, we started for Islamic finance official. We started in 1983. However, we did start our tabung haji, our Hajj fund in 1963. So, but we don't really have a proper act for financial instrument at the time. And then in 1983, we started our, and then we established our Islamic Banking Act in 1983. And then we start to establish the Islamic Bank, Bank Islam Malaysia Berhad. And then at that time, our central bank have led the Bank Islam to run for 10 years actually as a pilot until 1993. So that they can actually monitor it and study properly and whatnot. And after that, they have established multiple organizations that support this banking, this Islamic banking, such as the establishment of the education research center under the central bank. And then nowadays we have the dedicated team in the MDEC, the Malaysia Digital Economy Corporation, that focuses on the Islamic digital economy. So with that, I will say Malaysia is progressing quite well. From the global perspective, I think, I mean, if we were to compare with conventional, we are catching up. We are catching up quite fast, right? With all those investment, the new investment, right? I.e., we know this year we have the Qatar World Cup, right? So of course, being Islamic country, somehow or other, there is an Islamic instrument over there, right? So I would say with that investment, Qatar World Cup, say for example, and the, I would say, creative sukuk, sukuk intifak that fund the Zamzam Tower in Makkah, right? So, and then with Saudi pushing the economy diversity, I think we are progressing positively, right? Despite, of course, COVID that, I mean, make some stagnation here and there. Okay.
Right, sir. And sir, you have successfully combined your expertise in digital technologies with Islamic finance industries. Could you suggest any ways the industry could meet its objective in a better way?
All right. Okay. As the industry start to get into maturity, right? So in Malaysia, I think we start maybe almost 40 years actually for the Islamic banks, like finance, right? But Islamic, I mean, instrument itself is actually over than that, actually, right? Almost 60 years, right? So as the industry start to get into maturity, I think it is time that we started to focus more on the value of the Islamic finance and Islamic economy itself. We we need to start to think, why do we start Islamic finance itself, right? So we need to see from the Islamic finance Islamic economy as a whole, right? I think, of course, as the digital professional, right? I think this is where digital play their role, actually, right? So the thing related to the social finance, such as wakaf, sedekah, those days, of course, to actually produce wakaf, we need, usually they will use sukuk wakaf, right? But nowadays we have the fintech platform, we have the crowdfunding, we have all the things that we can actually leverage, the fintech that we can actually leverage to actually enable this wakaf and sedekah. We can also start to explore, because in Islamic finance, right, there's a lot of contract, and some of the contract is not jive, or it's very risky to actually implement in the current situation. Say for example, musyarakah and mudarabah, say for example, contract musyarakah and mudarabah. These two contract, right, they can't really implement it, because when they want to implement, say for example, musyarakah, the risk-weighted asset, right, the RWA, they need to prepare 200%, say for example. So I think they need to start to relook back into implementing this kind of contract, because now we have a lot of things that we can actually make the transaction more transparent, say for example, more secure. Of course, the big word nowadays is actually blockchain. Probably we can actually implement blockchain in musyarakah and mudarabah, right? So to mitigate whatever the risks that they have mentioned, whatever the risks that they mentioned in the FRS, the financial report standard, right? And I think Islamic finance or Islamic economy as a whole, we can actually explore on the new asset class, because nowadays data, say for example, data is a new asset class actually. It's a goal. It's a new goal actually. We can see how, from Islamic perspective, we need to see how we can actually commoditize the data. And then another thing is actually, of course, this one some country has started. Have already started. I think like Saudi, say for example, they have just established a division, Digital Vision 2030, and then Malaysia with the MDEC and whatnot. I think, and then digital bank. I'm not sure. Our government will announce the digital bank. Who's gonna want the digital bank in March? Not sure. I'm not sure whether one of the Islamic bank can win it or not. We will wait and see, right? Back to my point, right? The government really have to play their role actually to drive this initiative, right? So I think so if government have a proper plan, right? Of course, it is supported by the industry itself. I think, yeah, we can actually meet the objective in the better way.
Right, sir. And sir, many aspiring professionals would like to enter into this industry. What do you think are the right qualifications for them, and how should they get ready to serve the Islamic banking industry in the coming years?
All right. Okay. Thank you. So I would like to, from this perspective, I would like to just describe two things, right? So two things that get me into this industry. Number one is actually passion. Number two is actually qualification, right? So passion. So how do I develop my passion, right, in this Islamic finance? So I didn't really really develop my passion in Islamic finance until my 5th year into my career, actually, right? So at that time, I started to involve. I started to involve in that. Actually, I thought at that time I can actually pivot to another industry, because at that time I was still really young. Actually, not even 30 at the time. So and I started to, because my boss at that time bring me to the conference, meet people, and I started to go into in depth, attending some conferences, right? And then I start to develop an interest, start to know some leaders, scholars in Islamic finance. That is when I think that, oh, okay, so I think this is my career path and this is what I want to do. So that is when I develop my passion, right? So that's passion. And then next is actually qualification. Of course, typically people talk about the experience. I think that is actually everyone will say about experience. Yes, experience is actually very important. However, when I start to, I start to venture into finance. Of course, my original qualification is actually software engineering, and I start to talk about Islamic finance. I go in depth into Islamic finance. I start to think that, hey, qualification is actually very important. And then at the time, I did because some of the conferences they give, they give us the ticket to go into the short course and whatnot. I started to go into short course, and I thought I know a lot, but hey, oh, there's a lot of things that I didn't know actually, right? So yeah. So for me, qualification is actually very important. And another thing, qualification, when you have the qualification, you will have the credibility and authority on the subject. So that is my thought actually on the qualification. And then we know, right, the experience is actually our own journey. However, we don't know other people's journey. We don't know the other market and whatnot. So how do we learn about that? Of course, we need to venture into the qualification, right? On because like me, I venture into post where I enroll my master in Islamic finance, right? Uh, for me, qualification will complement the experience, right? So that we accumulate in the experience. Of course, it's gonna be eye opener because I did. Along my career, I did meet people that so-called expert. However, this some of the expert they don't have. If they don't have experience, right, they can't really go far. They're only expert in their domain. So if they actually have qualification, they took certificate and whatnot, right? So they can actually go far because they know other people market. So for someone that want to venture into this professionalism, right? I would really recommend to go into postgraduate study, right? Say, for example, Master in Islamic Economy or Master in Islamic Finance. However, if time is not permitted, they can actually go for there's a lot of courses out there, right? They can actually go into modular certification, right? Some of the institute out there, they offer the modular certification. I think this is very important for them to actually guide them and catapult their career actually. So that is my 2 cents actually on the to aspire to venture into this profession. I think you need a passion and you need some qualification. Yeah,
that's right. Great. Right. And sir, I got a couple of questions.
All right, sure.
Is that okay? Can I ask?
Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned in your conversation earlier today that you are serving large number of Islamic finance industry, Islamic financial institutions. Would smaller players also become your customers?
Oh, okay. All right. So yeah, that is a good question actually. So that is one of my tasks now actually. Okay. Our customer, because Silverlake, if you look into our customer segment and how we have progressed, right? Our customer has, when we reach that certain level, the customer need to be at certain size actually, right? A certain size. If they are really small, if they are really small, we need to tweak our business model. So this is my task actually now. So I need to see, right? So if the customer really small with really small budget, right? So this is my task now. I need to see how we can actually change our business model to suit their need, right? So because so we need to see in those days, right? Those days when people start to look into the solution, when bank financial institution look into the solution, they only look into the capex actually. They look into acquire the system. But nowadays, right, we need to look into the OPEX model. So that is one of my tasks actually. We did successfully implement some of with our client on the OPEX model actually. But Of course, in future, I think OpEx model, SaaS, software as services, is gonna be the future actually. Because I mean, as you can see, I just want to correlate with Microsoft, say for example, Microsoft Office, right? You don't have to buy anymore, right? So you just subscribe to them, subscribe to 365, Microsoft 365. So we are getting toward that model actually. Yeah, so to cater to that market actually, to smaller market.
Do you target your customers in Southeast Asia only, or maybe people, institutions from other parts of the world could also contact you, get your support?
Okay, right. Okay, thank you. So we do have other clients because our strength, of course, in Southeast Asia. We do have a lot of clients in Sri Lanka. We have in Bangladesh before. And then we also have in Dubai actually, right? And then in Silverlake as a whole, I mean, if we were to count everything, we have it in Australia actually as well, Australia and New Zealand. For your info, I still have. I mean, the initiative is still running. We try to actually establish with partner over there and a bank partner in Australia actually, an Islamic bank. However, the process is actually taking quite some time because of the regulatory. Because I mean to implement an Islamic bank in purely non-Islamic country, so that is actually purely alien actually. So for us to actually implement the contract and whatnot, right? So that one they need to do some ticking actually in the legislation of their central bank. Yeah. So yeah, I mean to summarize, right? We do get the other market actually. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the time you've taken to speak with us and our audience today.
Yeah, thank you to you. Yeah, thank you for inviting me actually. Yeah.
Our audience will be able to learn a lot from your amazing conversation. It was terrific to get to know you, to get an insight from an industry professional like you. And I really want to thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much, brother.
All right. Assalamualaikum.
Alaikum salam.